Older Arizonans accounted for 55% of all Arizona voters in the last presidential election, and those age 50 plus made up 64% of the state's voters in the 2022 midterms. Older Arizonans are expected to again have an outsized impact in this year's elections. And for more on that impact, we welcome Wes Gullett, partner at Nexus Strategy Group. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thanks for coming in.
You needed an old guy to talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, you fit the bill. We both fit the bill. With that in mind, how much of an impact do we have?
We have a huge impact because we go to the polls. We vote. Older people vote. 55 plus, they turn out 100%.
Yeah, traditionally very high. You see the same thing going this time around?
Yes. Yep. And historically, that's been the case.
Yes.
So it's not going to be different.
Traditionally more conservative as well. Is that what we're seeing out there?
Typically. In this new poll that the AARP brought out, it was interesting to me because protecting Social Security was the #1 issue in that poll, and that's typically a Democratic issue.
Yes, and protecting Medicare as well was also very important. Also, things like helping folks stay in their homes as they age. It's a big deal.
Right, and so those are core Democratic issues. So but older people tend to be more conservative. They're concerned about their retirement. They're concerned about their 401ks. And, as we've transitioned from a pension supported elderly population to now more Social Security supported, I think that it'll level out. The poll was a little skewed, I think, to the right.
Well, I think that Tony Fabrizio, I think, is the former lead pollster for Trump, so I think we have that to play in mind here. And it was conducted by this GOP-leaning firm, but still, some of these things, help for caregivers, cost of housing, cost of utilities, these are top of mind. And I wonder again, is there a clear delineation, Democrat, Republican, on these?
Well, and I think that if you look at the underlying numbers with Biden and his approval rating, I think he's unfairly blamed for the concern that people have about inflation. And I think that it's going to be day by day, too. So as inflation comes under control and people start registering that in their minds, I think then you'll see an uptick for the president.
I was going to say all polls are snapshots anyway,
right.
So this is a particular snapshot from a particular angle. 50 plus, the immigration issue, border security, a top issue. And,
typically, Ted, when we see immigration at that kind of level, it's going to be a Republican cycle. And I've been concerned about that all along in terms of that number being so high. I think that's why your last segment was talking about what Biden is trying to do on the border.
Right. And again, inflation and threats to democracy, those are up there as well. Threats to democracy, that was never an issue in the past. It is now. That would seem to skew more toward the left.
And if you look at the underlying numbers in that poll, that's who was concerned
yes,
about.
Yes.
And, frankly, I think this is the most important election in my lifetime. So, because I'm scared about our democracy. I think that when you challenge the underpinning of what we do and you make baseless attacks on the way that votes are counted, and people worry about that, and that number comes up, that's a scary thing. That's a very scary thing. And our democracy is fragile. All democracies are. Indeed,
and voters in this age group, I don't think this is a surprise. 68% think the country is headed in the wrong direction.
I know,
but you know what? You could probably find 50 plus people in generations past, complaining about this, but 68%.
Not like that, not 2/3. And it's tragic, that our country, we've come to this place, and especially in Arizona, the land of milk and honey. This is the promised land. And people still think that we're on the wrong track. I don't know.
Well, and one last thing about this. Again, this is a former lead pollster for Donald Trump, put this thing out for AARP, so we keep that in mind. But the 50 plus, Trump's lead is 10 points over Biden in this thing?
It is, but when you look at it, Trump's not over 50. If it was 10 points, it was 55-45.
Yeah.
There would be enormous concern about that. But when you see, and also you look, 78% of Democrats were voting for Trump. I think what happens is the third party candidate, in this case John Kennedy, or Robert Kennedy, is going to come down. That number always comes down.
They had him at 11%
Yeah,
in this.
exactly. And at the end of the day, when the votes are counted, it'll be more like 5. And so people want to play with that. They want to flirt with it, but they also want to come home to safety and what they know. And I think that people will come home to President Biden. I really do. But it's going to take a lot of work.
Last question on this. Ruben Gallego, 3-point lead over Kerry Lake among the 50-plus crowd. Among the 50-plus crowd, Lake actually has a 1-point lead over Gallego, the other way around for all voters. 50-plus crowd with Lake, 1 point. Women vastly support Gallego more than women.
Yeah.
Like Gallego more than Lake.
Yeah.
The 50-plus crowd.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's going to be very close. It's going to be a very close senatorial election, and I think that it's going to be very interesting. The most important thing is that everybody needs to vote. This
Right.
is the one time you got to go vote.
Yeah,
and so your Horizon crowd votes. They're excellent voters, 100%.
We like to think so.
They need to tell their neighbors too.
Yeah.
and especially their children and their grandchildren.
All right, well, I think you just did, Wes. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We
Always good to
appreciate
be
it.
with